Can everyone hear me if I speak at this point?
So yes.
Great. It is my goal today to leave you considering my proposition that the good life is the one lived in the mutual giving and receiving of instruction. I furthermore intend to prove that the life lived in this way surpasses death. In order to do so, however, I wish to begin with a story. Not too long ago, I was invited to attend a meeting of a youth group of Catholic Golden View families. And although I'm not Catholic, I thought I should find out what I'm up against. I accepted the invitation, and that night I accompanied Quinn Fisher and Wyatt McGregor to youth group. Over the course of the night, I heard many different perceptions and beliefs. Some I liked, some I found interesting, and others I disagreed with altogether. At the end of the night, Quinn came up to me and said, "I know you probably don't like some of the stuff you just heard, and I'm sure you have some questions." And while I couldn't have the discussion at the time, rather than let the need go unacknowledged, as would have been very easy to do, and not unheard of for people of my age, we met the very next evening at Wyatt's house. Quinn opened the discussion by saying, "Ask me all of your questions. I'll be better able to defend my faith if you do, even though I can't answer them all." The three of us then sat on Wyatt's floor and spent the better part of 2 hours rehashing the things I heard the previous night. I still didn't agree with all of them, though we all left the discussion with a better understanding of one another's convictions, but more importantly, a greater ability to defend our own. The heart of the good life lies in how Quinn began the conversation. I'll be better able to defend myself if you ask me your questions. Goodness is not an individual achievement. It's a communal effort. Proverbs 27:17 reads, "As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another." Relationship is critical to the good life. When a man experiences a good relationship, he comes closer to goodness. Good relationships are based on the scriptural model of mentorship, where goodness isn't a formula to be kept hidden, but a lifestyle to be shared and taught through word and example. In short, the good life is where one both teaches and is taught what goodness is through relationship. Before I even discuss the kinds of relationship that particularly bring about the good life, however, the question on your minds may well be, are you saying that someone who wishes to live in isolation cannot live the good life? Yes. In fact, I believe that goodness is a communal pursuit because man was never intended to live alone. In Genesis 2, verse 18, just after the creation of Adam, God says, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." When no suitable companion is found for Adam among the animals, the Lord creates woman to fill that empty space. This is remarkable. So far in the creation narrative, God has appraised everything simply as it was good. Man's loneliness is the first thing that is not good. Man needed other men. In fact, goodness itself and companionship are inextricably tied to one another. Aristotle validated the same idea in the Politics when he wrote that man is by nature a political animal. He was commenting on the fact that man seeks to live in community because it is in the company of others that we become better. Humans are separated from the animals in that we are capable of discussing virtue and morality, the things which make us better. Choosing to isolate oneself is possible, potentially even a good life, but eliminates the possibility of this discussion. Man shouldn't seek isolation as a lifestyle. It forces goodness to again become an individual achievement, and it means that we aren't acting as mentors to those around us or being mentored by them. Huckleberry Finn exemplifies what I mean here. Shortly after running away from his captivity in Pap's cabin, we behold Huck living alone on Jackson's Island, and ostensibly acting good. He's not stealing, he's not engaged in anything immoral, and he's not leading anyone astray. In short, he is arguably acting simply good. However, the frailty of this situation is immense in two ways. On one hand, if he does make a bad mistake, no one is around to correct him. Should he begin acting immorally, no one stands by to put him back on the path to goodness. On the other hand, even though he is acting good, he's not teaching anyone else by living alone. They cannot learn from his example. The mentorship that is so important to goodness in life is absent. Whether we teach others through our example or actually discuss and instruct them in the ways of goodness, mentorship is a natural and good aspect of humanity. We teach those around us through our speech and through our deeds. As Paul encouraged Titus, quote, in everything, set them an example by doing what is good. In that passage, he was specifically discussing integrity. He did not mean to act good when people are watching. He meant that because people are always watching, we should act good. In Exodus chapter 18, God tells Moses that the ones who should serve as mentors to the people are those who have integrity and a hatred of dishonest gain. According to verse 20, these people are, quote, to teach the people his decrees and instructions, to show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. Again, mentorship in Scripture is inextricably linked with integrity. If we are to be mentors, our moral standards should be reflected in our actions and words always. Our integrity is visible in the way we treat others. The golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, comes directly from Matthew 7:12. Mentorship means both teaching and being taught what goodness is according to our integrity, and it manifests itself in three key relationships in our lives. Different people of different ages and different experiences have different levels of knowledge concerning goodness, and mentorship involves both a mentor and a mentee. In case that's not a word, it is now. Therefore, the first relationship in which this kind of mentorship appears is that which exists between parent and child. Parenthood is a natural aspect of humanity. It is an exercise in living and leading by example, instructing one's progenies in the ways of life, and cultivating their character that they may go on to be strong, faithful members of society. Meanwhile, as parents undertake the noble task of instruction, so children should undertake that of being instructed. From simple commands like, do not run out in front of traffic, to heftier directives like, tell the truth. A parent endeavors to provide for the safety and character of the child. The child may not understand why he shouldn't play in traffic, but if he wishes to live a longer, happier life, he should keep his mind. The most beautiful phrasing of the parental calling is found in Proverbs 22, verse 6, which says, train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. For children, Proverbs 19:20 reads, listen to advice and accept discipline, and in the end, you will be counted among the wise. Parenting is a task of guarding and fortifying the child's soul so that he may be strong and faithful, not just in this world, but in the next. As children, we allow ourselves to be mentored by our parents if we wish to achieve goodness in life. The next key relationship in which mentorship is present is that which exists between teacher and student. Luke chapter 6, verse 40 states that a student is not above his teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like his teacher. Teachers may love their field of study, but they teach to strengthen the character and bolster the virtue of their students. Or they should. The point of teaching is to give a student something good that they can carry onward through life to aid them. A math teacher doesn't encourage her students to keep trying simply for the sake of the equation, but to cultivate the perseverance and determination necessary for success in life. A history teacher points out trends so that his students may identify the mistakes of the past and strive to avoid them in the future. Teachers may never see the fruits of their efforts, but they mentor so that they can play a part in training stronger, better humans. Galatians chapter 6, verse 6 articulates the merits of a student allowing himself to be taught. Anyone who receives instruction in the Word, it reads, must share all good things with his instructor. Accepting instruction pertaining to virtue and integrity prepares a student for success and brings him closer to goodness. Interactions between instructor and learner grow both individuals as people and improve them through exposure to different experiences and lifestyles. The dynamic between teacher and student strengthens both individuals. But the final and most important method in which we mentor one another as human beings is through friendship. True friendship is informed by scriptural principles and based on the example of Christ. The Christian model of friendship is one of love, sacrifice, and living by example. Christ mentored his apostles, calling them his friends and teaching them how to conduct themselves. The Apostle John calls us thus, quote, "Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another." Later he writes, "We love because he first loved us." But that which I mean by true friendship is most beautifully encapsulated in Proverbs 27:17, which I referenced earlier. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. True friendship holds both parties accountable, when it's uncomfortable and when it's comfortable. We strengthen one another, we encourage one another, and we rejoice in each other's triumphs. We are aware of our own faults and of those of our friends, but beyond this awareness, we strive to improve upon them. How can iron sharpen iron if neither piece ever enters the forge? Aristotle points out that, quote, "The friendship of decent people is decent and is increased by their associating with one another. In cases where one friend is better than the other, both are provided an opportunity. The better man has the chance to mentor his friend, and the learner can choose to become better through the process." Aristotle asserts that he who will be happy will need serious friends, and he goes on to discuss that friendship is its own community, sought by people with a common purpose, and common aim. Herein lies a commentary on the reason friendship exists. The description of friendship as a community harkens back to my previous claim that communal life is our natural tendency as humans. We seek out the company of others for the sake of being happy. Those with whom we find a common goal or purpose become our friends. We see in these people a better way to achieve our goals in life, to become better people. Goodness, and with it the good life, is something for which we strive with our friends, and it is better that we do so. Aristotle claims that friendship is not only a choice we make, but a necessity if we wish to be happy. He writes, "The presence of friends, therefore, appears choiceworthy in all cases." Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 echoes this premise. "Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their work. Not only is it better that we pursue happiness and the betterment of our souls with our friends, but it increases the likelihood of success in that endeavor." There's another element of the iron metaphor in Proverbs. The scripture invokes the image of a weapon, a sword. This phrasing paints the picture of preparations for a coming battle. Personally, I find this image compelling and convicting because it helps me to think of my role as a friend and my need for friends as a recognition of the fact that there is evil in this world, but that I will be better equipped to fight it with friends on my side. Ecclesiastes 4:10 states, "If one falls down, his friend can help him up. But pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up." Without friends, we are more susceptible to the forces of evil and viciousness in this world. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of three strands is not easily broken. Our friendships are not only sources of strength to us, but our protection. Through them, we not only attack evil, but defend each other from it as well. The relationships in our lives, which are built from a foundation of mentorship, are parenthood, teaching, and friendship. Notice that every one of them sits in this room. The parent's task is to protect their child, and their legacy is the lessons the child keeps with them. The teacher's task is to reinforce these lessons and to assist in the exploration of why the students have been taught the way they have. Friendship is the first mentoring relationship which we seek for ourselves. To explore and expand what we know of goodness and pursue it to greater extents. The integrity of a winning sword is that which belongs to true friendship. Yet though these relationships guide us to goodness while we live, The examples they allow us to set for those who follow us are equally important. The good life is not just lived in relationship because relationships bring about goodness, but because relationship allows our goodness to surpass death. A man's legacy is the example he leaves behind for others to preserve, observe, and replicate. Goodness isn't something to be kept to ourselves so that each successive generation must rediscover it anew. The lessons of those before us still guide us today. These lessons are the legacy of our ancestors. The task of parenthood is to teach their children morality. Encapsulated in that endeavor is the building of their legacy. Our teachers further cultivate our virtue and help us develop our character. If ever a profession was dedicated to legacy, it is teaching. We seek the company of friends because we wish to be better and improve ourselves. We become better as we learn from others, and in doing so become better qualified to mentor others. Goodness is a pursuit that lasts for the entirety of our lives, but we can achieve it to some extent. But as much as our success comes from the level of goodness we achieve while alive, it comes equally from the successes of those who follow us, be they our children, our students, our friends. The endeavor of the good life, lived through mentorship, is to build a legacy of goodness to be studied and expanded by those who follow us. The good life overcomes death in this way. We continue to live through those we have mentored, as our goodness influences their choices and guides them to heights of goodness far beyond our own. Mentorship is effective when it's consistent. Our goal should be to act in such a way that people see goodness in our deeds and that we inspire them to act in the same fashion, whether they never see us again or remember us always. One act of goodness or kindness is insufficient to convince anyone else to act in a similar way. People take notice when they see a pattern. In his essay, Self-Reliance, Ralph Waldo Emerson describes a man's actions and legacy with the image of a ship. Quote, "There will be an agreement in whatever variety of action. For of one will, the actions will be harmonious, however unlike they seem. These varieties are lost sight of at a little distance, at a little height of thought. One tendency unites them all. The voyage of the best ship is a zigzag line of 100 tacks. See the line from a sufficient distance, and it straightens itself to the average tendency. Your genuine action will explain itself, and it will explain your other genuine actions. Act singly, and what you have already done will justify you now. Greatness appeals to the future." End quote. A legacy of goodness is built on habits of good. Each and every good act is not the same, nor will they produce the same result, but these are the tacks of the ship in the metaphor. People can view your actions from a distance and see the purpose and character that drives them. A character isn't made by a single act, but action should be taken singly. A simple pattern is insufficient. Acting good because you must just fits a mold. Acting singly good means the presence of choice. These choices, when viewed from a distance, will reveal the tendency of and toward good character. This distance is one measured over time as a pattern develops, where people watching see consistency in your actions. A habit of acting singly good leads to the destination of good character. Our actions shape the present, but greatness appeals to the future. Acting good simply for goodness' sake builds a legacy that people will look back to, not just one you must look ahead for. Being good convinces people. Appearances don't. Emerson finishes the image. Be it how it will, do right now. Always scored appearances, and you always may. The force of character is cumulative. The only way to convince others that you are good is to be habitually and yet singly good, that they are convinced of your goodness and can view your trajectory. The good life is defined as much by what follows it as what it was. Our efforts should center on understanding and practicing God's command to love one another, learning from Christ's example of mentorship. This we do best if we pursue it in community, because we are made to live together. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. But this only happens if we're willing to enter the forge. We are called to mentor and be mentored by those around us. Our legacy allows us to continue mentoring untold numbers of people after death, because the lessons of the past will always instruct the future. Let us endeavor then to ensure that the lessons we leave behind, our legacy, be of friendship and goodness. Thank you. Take the black skin stood this under. Dr. Jackson.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. As you were talking, you spent quite a while discussing this mentoring relationship. And you focused very, very much on the ones that are beneficial, that help both persons or groups involved. And I would like you to talk or share your thoughts about those sorts of relationships you have. Not to take example, not all parents are wonderful and do what's best for their children. Not all teachers are always the best. Not all peers, not all friendships are actually ones that are beneficial for all that are involved. How do you reconcile and how do you take into account in your ideas when relationships are not all positive? How would you handle that?
Personally, I see two options. One, end the relationship. Or two, be the mentor. If the person who would be the mentor in the good relationship, if the teacher is not a good teacher, if the friend is a poor friend, if the parent is a poor parent, obviously some of those can be ended as relationships. But the opportunity nonetheless exists for the other person to be the mentor. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it begins. How would that happen? I mean, if you were a situation where perhaps peer pressure is pushing you to do something not good, how would then you take up the mentor role?
If your judgment is such that you can view what's being suggested as bad, as wrong, I think that comes from God's commands, understanding what Scripture says about the way we ought to act, the way we ought to treat each other. Having that insight, I think, obligates you to share it with those that are trying to lead you astray. They can only lead you if you allow yourself to be led, which means that you need to become the leader in such a situation. Yes?
Along those same lines, what do you think are the standards that should be put in place so that you can determine who should be allowed to speak into your life, whose influence you receive and who you don't? In other words, how do you know if you should be mentored and influenced by someone or not?
It's difficult to be the judge of character outright, but there are certain things about living the way God has instructed us to live that are undeniably present when you look at someone. Whether they love those they're around, whether they act with virtue, whether they act with you to goodness and to treat others the way they would want to be treated. I think those are some really basic, fundamental principles that if you don't see those in that person, they no longer have the power or the authority to speak any insight into your life as to how you ought to act. If you don't see God's principles, God's calling, God's command in their life, they should not be the ones leading you. Dr. Benson.
First of all, congratulations. Really wonderful words and beautifully delivered. My question would be, so you mentioned that a life lived in solitude cannot be the good life. What role, if any, does solitude play in the good life?
Solitude Obviously, we can't spend every waking moment with our friends, besides the fact that that would be somewhat weird. That, just practically, it doesn't work out. I think solitude has its place in the good life, not as the primary contributing factor, but as a source of replenishment, seeking back to communion with God, centering yourself perhaps, and allowing yourself to realign your will, your thoughts, your actions with God's commands. That solitude certainly plays a role, but I think that role should be one of reestablishment in what you know you ought to be mentoring others in. Dr.
Following on that point, there's an interesting kind of, not juxtaposition, but harmony between your defense and Ellie's. Insofar as Ellie's, you guys seem to have, one, a fundamental disagreement on the place of relationships. Friendship and being with others is a kind of society. And not needing society and therefore having a relationship with God on your own is a kind of isolation. It's your own thinking on your own in a very personal relationship with the divine. In Plato's divided line, which you study, there's an argument that the conversation that takes place with friends is not the highest. And in fact, the highest is your thinking that you do on your own. If friendship, or the mentoring relationships that arise among a family, school, and friends, is the good life, are you leaving out the solitude and the time necessary to reflect on the things that will be the grist for the conversation when you talk with your friends? Is there something higher that you need in order to make the friendship the good thing you want it to be?
Discussion obviously can't happen without your own opinions. So then, in that case, I would potentially revise my answer that solitude is where you decide what it is you're bringing to discussion. As far as the discussion with friends is not the highest, I'm going to disagree with Plato on that one. Because I'm going to make it personal, and there's too many good conversations that I've had with these two men in the front row that lead me to believe anything other than the conversation with friends is what is the highest. A story, last summer we were down at Clear Creek, and that was great until the sun went behind the clouds, and Clear Creek has a habit of being filled with snowmelt water. So we were sitting in Wyatt's truck shivering, and Wyatt just kind of out of the blue throws the comment out, I think we need to hold each other accountable, that this should be a thing. That's how he phrased it, or at least that's how he phrased it in my memory. And that night, we went from planning to go spend 3 hours at the creek to spending 2 hours parked at the top of Lookout Mountain talking about what it meant to find someone whose beliefs align with your own, what it meant to be a true friend, what does true friendship demand of a person. My forge metaphor is handy because Wyatt has a forge in his garage. And that's where we spend a lot of time having these such discussions if it's not Wyatt's bedroom floor. So, solitude helps you formulate the opinions you're going to bring to the discussion. But I think Plato's got it wrong when he says the discussion with friends isn't the highest.
So I'm curious how that plays out in some of your source material. Because as you remember, when Hawk is alone on Jackson's Island, there's that beautiful moment where he's lonely and he takes company with the stars. And your other source, Emerson, just gushed over that. As soon as Hawk enters back into society, he makes his way and he does a better job kind of resolving a lot of these moral conflicts regarding Jim. But then the book ends with the re-entry of Tom Sawyer, and suddenly Huck